Students, today we are going to start modal verbs. But before that, let us see something. So, students, today we are going to start a lesson in which something is going to help something else. Means, one thing or one word is going to help another word, is going to give support to another word, and thus will give a proper meaning to the sentence itself. So, the role of the modal verbs are somewhat like this. These are basically or are known as helping verbs which support the main verbs in different kinds of sentences. So, before starting modals, we will see what are main verbs and what are auxiliary verbs and what are the differences between them and how the helping verbs are supporting the main verbs or auxiliary verbs are basically supporting the main verbs. There are basically two kinds of verbs, main verbs and auxiliary verbs. Number 1, main verbs. These are known as the principal verbs which have meanings of their own, agree with the number and person of the subject, and it also shows, as it is stated over here, along with showing the time in the bracket, it is given as tense. So, tense at which the activities are performed. So, these are known as the principal verbs. Means, these are considered basically as important verbs or those which occupy the most prominent position in different kinds of sentences, which have meanings of their own, or they can stand on their own, they can bear a specific meaning if they are not being provided with any kind of helping word. So they have meanings of their own. Agree with the number. So they agree with the number, whether the subject is in singular or plural. and person. First person, suppose I, we. Second person, you. Third person, they, he, she, of the subject. Along with showing the time means whether an activity is taking place in your past time or it has happened recently in the present time or it is going to take place in the future time. So, past, present, or future time at which the activities are performed or they take place. For example, number A, Rohan has a new car. Here, has is acting as the main verb as it does not have any supporting verb or supporting word to change its meaning. So it's bearing a meaning of its own and it can stand alone to render a complete meaning to this sentence over here. Rohan has a new car. Okay, has over here stands as the main verb. Next, B. He is a very sincere boy. Is over here is the main verb. Means a boy is sincere. So is what he is basically. So here this very word quote unquote is very important and is acting as the main verb. Next, number C. Amit does his own work himself only. So over here, does is the main verb. What he does? He does his own work by himself only. Number 2, auxiliary verbs. These are also known as helping verbs. They can't be used alone in a sentence as their work is to support the main verb. These verbs are used in forming the tenses and voices of other verbs in a sentence. Students, auxiliary verbs are basically helping verbs or they are known as helping verbs as their main work is to help the main verbs in different kinds of sentences. They are very useful in between main verb and auxiliary verb. Main verb, it is known as the principal verb, and auxiliary verb, it is known as the helping verb. Number 2, main verb, it acts independently, and number 2, in case of auxiliary verb, it cannot act independently. Now, since main verb is considered as the most important one, so it is known as the principal verb, or it bears its own complete meaning as it is given in point number 3. But unlike that, in case of auxiliary verb, it has its existence only when it supports main verb, without which it is incomplete, as given in case of auxiliary verb and under 8 over here. So basically, main verb provides a particular meaning to the sentence itself, or it can stand alone since it can bear a specific meaning of its own. While in case of the auxiliary verb, it has its existence only when it supports the main verb. So it acts as the helping verb. Auxiliary verbs are basically of two kinds. Number 1, primary auxiliary verbs. Number 2, modal auxiliary verbs. Now, definition of the modal auxiliary verbs. Modal verbs are auxiliary verbs, also called helping verbs, like can, will, could, shall, must, would, might, should, have to, so on and so forth. Modal verbs add meaning to the main verbs in a sentence or different kinds of sentences by expressing possibility, ability, permission, obligation, and many more or many other emotional aspects. So, students, modal verbs are basically helping verbs. And many examples are given over here, like can, will, could, so on and so forth. Now, modal verbs add meaning to different kinds of main verbs in a sentence or different kinds of sentences. So, they give specific directions, they give specific directions to different kinds of sentences by enriching their existence with the help of different specific meanings. Students, otherwise, we will find many times these sentences incomplete or without having proper sense as such. So, they are given proper sense or complete meanings with the help of these verbs, and they express possibility, ability, permission, obligation, and many other emotional aspects. So, different kinds of expressions have different situations or real conditions as such. For example, possibility. So, if anything is possible or not. So these verbs express the possibility of anything. Ability. Now someone's capacity or basic ability to do any kind of work. Next, permission. Whether you are seeking permission or you are granting it. So basically, that situation, that basic human feelings. Suppose someone wants to grant permission or someone wants to seek permission. Next, obligation. If someone is doing any kind of work out of his obligation or urge or compulsion, or he has to do due to any kind of responsibility. So that kind of state and many other emotional aspects or many other emotional conditions that a person can have. Next, features of modals. Number 1, they are never used alone. So this modals or this helping verbs are never used alone, as they don't have any existence or they don't have any meaning of their existence without the main verbs. So they are never used alone. Next, number 2, they don't agree with person and number of the subject. So if any subject is in first person, second person or third person, it doesn't matter. Or whether it is in singular form or in plural form, it also doesn't matter. So this helping verbs don't change their forms with the number or person of the respective subjects in different kinds of sentences. Now, let us see. Suppose here we are using the modal can to express it. Person, first person, singular form. I can do it. Next, plural form. We can do it. See students, when we are using we instead of I is in singular form as it is only depicting me or it is only referring myself. So, it is in singular form. Unlike the second one, we, which is referring to a group of people among which I am also there or I am also present. So, we, for we also, can it's not changing its form. It is remaining same. So, we can do it. Next, second person. You can do it. Suppose you are telling to your friend, you can do it. Next, plural form. You can do it. Now, this you is for a group of people. For many others or some others you are referring to. So, in both the cases, can is remaining same. It is not changing its form. Next, third person. He can do it. Okay? In place of he, we can also use she or anyone's name. Okay? Next, in case of plural form, they can do it. So, they, we are considering or referring to a group of people over here. But in both the cases, again, we are finding that can is remaining same. Number 3, they do not have forms of infinitive, present participle, or past participle. Now, students, you must know to infinitive, to plus base form of the verb. So, you do not have to infinitive over here, or it's not bare infinitive to, since it is far away from the main verb. Next, present participle. Students, something, a word of verb, suppose work plus ing, working, that will act as an adjective or in place of an adjective. So, that kind of word is also not going to be present over here. Or past participle. Past participle, third form of the verb, as you know. Suppose go, went, gone. Gone over here is the third form or past participle of the main verb go. Next, number 4. Always negative words are not formed by immediately putting not after the specific words of modals, but sometimes not is put between the consecutive words of modals too. For example, ought not to, where not is in between the respective words ought and to. Unlike the what cannot, in which not is after the word can or specifically acting together with it. So to make a word, or better to say, the sentence itself, negative. Number 5. Questions are formed by putting modals before the subjects. For example, would you please lend me your books? Number B. Can we go there? So, would in the first example and can in the second example are modals, where questions are being formed by putting these words of modals at first of this interrogative sentences or questions. Next, number 6. Modals are used in question tags as number A. She can't be right. Can she? Number B. You won't do that, will you? So, over here, can she, can, and will you, will. So, can and will are modals which are used as question tags. Number 7. Only 4 modals, can, shall, will, and may, have their past forms: could, should, would, and might. Next, number 8. Sometimes to is used after some words like dare, used, and have. Like dare to, used to, and have to, or has to suppose. Also, had to, have as the main form of verb over there. And when it is used in the present context and having singular form of subject, specifically third person singular number, then has to is to be used, and had to in case of the past or something being referred, that had taken place or had happened in the past time. Modal can. Let's see the first example which expresses ability. Alex can swim. So, anyone can do any task. So, that reflects his or her ability. Next, permission. Can I borrow this? Students, over here, you can see that in the bracket it is written may is also used. So, in place of can, you can also use may for permission. Asking for permission. Next one, offers or offer. Can I help you? Question mark. So it's an offer. Offer to someone. Suppose you are telling to your friend, can I help you? Question mark. You shouldn't say question mark after that. Only what do you want to ask? So students, you have to tell only, can I help you? Next, could, which reflects possibility, past ability, permission, requests. At first, let us see the example of possibility. That story could be true. Who knows? So there's a possibility that that story could be true. Who knows? So someone is not sure about a certain story, that whether it is imaginative or it's real, that was being written. So that story could be true. Who knows? Next, past ability. Charlie could swim at the age of 4. So here, someone is expressing someone else's past ability. Charlie could swim. So he could do something in the past or in his past. So Charlie could swim at the age of 4. Next, permission. Could I use your phone, please? So, someone is taking permission from you, or I'm taking permission from someone else. Could I use Your phone, please. Next, requests. Over here, a single request has been done. Could you pass me the salt, please? So, someone is telling someone else to pass him salt. Suppose while taking lunch or dinner, or maybe in one's breakfast. So, could you pass me the salt, please? Next one, be able to. Actually, students, this one also sometimes known as a less used modal. Let's see. It reflects ability. My brother is able to find his way home. So it's the ability, or it's my brother's ability, that my brother is able to find his way home. Suppose he is lost somewhere, and I'm telling this in order to reflect his capability, his ability to do a task. To do what? To return back home safely. Have to, which reflects obligation. I have to stop at a red light. That's the law. So I have to do something. It's my obligation. Okay? Students, you must be aware of the traffic rules, and when drivers see red light at a crossing, they have to stop. So over here it is given. Here, suppose I'm driving a car, so I have to stop. Okay? Next, children have to arrive on time at school. So they have to arrive. They have to reach there at a specific time, or within a specific time, so that they can attend their classes. So children have to arrive on time at school. Next word we have may, which reflects possibility, permission. It may rain today. it's a bit cloudy. So it's a possibility that something can happen, something can take place, and it's rain. So it may rain today. It's a bit cloudy. So since the weather is cloudy, so rain can take place today, or we can have a rainy day. Next, permission. May I borrow your dictionary? Students, here C will be there, DICTIONARY. So, may I borrow something from you? So, that is a sort of taking permission. Next, might, which reflects slight possibility, past form of may in reported speech. We might win a prize, but I doubt it. So it's a slight possibility. It is what? A slight possibility. Next, past form of may in reported speech. I said it might rain, but I was wrong. So it might rain then, but I was wrong. So something happened in the past. Something I had predicted, but I was wrong. I said it might rain, but I was wrong. Next, must reflects obligation, logical deduction. For obligation, let us see the example. Airline officials must wear a uniform. So, students, those who work in the offices or for airline, they must wear a uniform. Officials, OFFICIALS, officials. Next, logical deduction. The heating is off. You must be very cold, or you must be cold. Here, must be cold. So, the heating means basically you must have a heater and that is switched off, or a kind of specifically electrical heating or electrical heater that provides heating or that makes your room quite warm in the winter season. So, That is off. You must be cold. So you must be feeling cold, actually. Next, mustn't or must not. Prohibition. So, prohibition is expressed through the word mustn't. You mustn't tell your mother. It's a surprise. Next, should.